Primal Chaos. Hey guys, Primal Chaos here. Welcome to the channel. Within Temptation. Now, I've had a history with them going back to roughly, I'd imagine somewhere around 2005. I guess that's about a year after The Silent Force came out. And I liked them back then. It was around the same time I got into, Nightwish and things like that. But to be fair, not a lot of interest. Well, not so much not a lot of interest. They just didn't cross my path much after that. So what I don't know about Within Temptation, I could just about fit into the Grand Canyon, as they say. I do like the way that they work. I like the, compositionally, I like they're a little bit cinematic and dramatic. Anyone who's a follower of the channel knows that that's kind of my wheelhouse. I love that sort of thing. Sharon Donadel, I think I said that right, she obviously has a wonderful, pristine bell-like tone, which I'm a big fan of. And, there's always like I love how I was looking him up on Wikipedia and they list, I can't find where his name was, but they had him listed as guitar and unclean vocals, which made me laugh because I'm like, unclean, it's just this weird way of expressing like dirty vocals or whatever. And I mean, it's probably common parlance, but for me, that's kind of new and it tweaked my ear a little bit by way of my eyes. So, I know they do symphonic rock. I know that it's sort of like that heightened fantasy sort of thing, not quite as intense as far as like, say something like Epica, of like how much they push the genre into sort of like that sort of more extreme fantasy stuff. Within Temptation to me always seemed a little bit more pop-centric. And I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm very inexperienced with these guys. Silent Force was a cool album. I listened to it quite a lot back then. But I mean, I couldn't name the songs off it, if you know what I'm saying. So this will be interesting because I want to know sort of how they've evolved, in the last 18 years, whatever. And, what's changed? Are they still doing the same thing? Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Some artists, they just, keep kicking on, like Kiss, just doing the same thing. Well, bad example because they don't have much output these days. But you know what I mean? Every time you heard a new Kiss song, you knew it would sound like an old Kiss song, if that makes sense. Or if they evolved and they've sort of started to introduce a little bit more of modern production elements and electronica kind of stuff that wasn't there before. I'm curious. I'm very curious. So let's just jump straight in. Within Temptation, Don't Pray For Me. Seems like the theme is pretty much the same, which is good because I like that sort of thing. Here we go. Within Temptation, Don't Pray For Me.
Will all who wish to die please raise their hands?
I love that synth sound. I hear that so much in metalcore. It's a very cool bass sound. Super low. Oh, so far, like just a really cool, strong melody from Sharon. Kind of simplistic in its approach, but like deceptively so. It's really easy to oversing these parts, but you need to leave room for a chorus, which I'm assuming is coming up and there's going to be like an elevated vocal above that. But I really like that. I love how they just sort of stripped it back to just bass and drums, which is fairly common, but again, it's an easy mistake to make to have too much early on in the song. Let me jump back. That bass sound is like, it's not so much the bass sound, it's how it sits in the mix. It's really subsonic low. There's not a lot of high-end string noise or finger noise or anything. Just a rumble. It's more of a sense of bass. Get a string rattle there, that's about it. Love that low. That lift. those choral vocals are great. I like they've kept it simple. I'm pretty sure the chorus and verse are the same chords. It's a real common pop trick. Oh, playing with delays, that's really cool. She has a great sound for this kind of music, she really does.
I'm going to let you pray for me.
Oh. Interesting use of samples. Cool. Very dramatic. I misspoke. I think I said that the chorus and the verse are the same chords. They're not. It was. I think it was coming out of a part after a chorus. But I just. Yeah. See, that's where I was getting confused. Yeah, it's basically like a pre-verse thing. Yeah, I got confused. But man, really cool. Like thematically and stuff like that, it's not that different from old stuff, but they've definitely modernized the concepts of production and the way that they orchestrate it instrumentally with the rock instruments, I should say. It's really interesting, and the use of samples and stuff as well. But all right, yeah, I'll just jump into an ad break. I'll come back and I'll give you a full summary on the whole thing. Hey guys, today's video is brought to you in part by Skillshare. Now, anyone who knows me will tell you that I have way too many interests and hobbies. I'm also what's known as an autodidact, which means I'm largely self-taught, but my interests vary wildly amongst an entire gamut of disciplines. Disciplines ranging from things like music production, composition, video production, YouTube content creation, 3D printing, 3D modeling, electronics, woodworking, drawing, painting, graphic design, computers and code. The list just goes on and on. And in order to become proficient in all of these disciplines, it's taken me a lifetime of skills gathered piecemeal here, there, and everywhere. By and large, it just takes so long to develop a skill level in any of those individual things. But it ain't the old days anymore. And today we've got services like Skillshare, a service that provides you with near limitless amounts of information for one small subscription fee. Seriously, all of their curated learning modules and lessons and classes. They're all available at your fingertips. What if you're a graphic designer and then one day you just need to learn something very specific in the world of spreadsheets? Your Skillshare account has you covered. And the courses are all curated, meaning that there's a standard level of competency required for anyone to be teaching a course. And the best part about all this is Skillshare offers free trials. So all you need to do is click the link in the description. It'll take you to their site and you can start learning right now. Or, wait till after my video. But either way, look, Skillshare. So yeah, I don't know that they're treading a lot of new ground. It still sounds very much like the Within Temptation I'm familiar with. But like I said, they sort of, it seems like they're probably more detuned now. It sounds like overall everything's very low end, in a good way, because that, in a way, it frees up a lot of room for Sharon's voice to really shine as well. But yeah, like thematically and stuff like that, they're sort of treading very similar ground. But again, I don't say that like that's a negative. Sometimes you need these industry stalwarts that every time they bring out a new album, the fans know exactly what they're going to get. You know, they're asking for more of the same and they're getting it. That said, there are subtle things that I picked up as far as production. Again, it seems like they're trying to go for a more heavy, aggressive sort of instrumentation through the rock band elements. Like a lot of the symphonic parts and the string parts and stuff is all keyboard based in a lot of cases. But it seems like the rest of the band are doing their best to sort of keep up with modern trends of like your metalcore and deathcore sort of stuff, where it's really about presenting that sort of aggressive, low rhythmic tribal rumble rather than your traditional rock and roll kind of aesthetic, right? And that sounds great. It suits them really, really well. I mean, they may have not changed. It might have been like that from the beginning. I'm trying to remember some of the stuff from back in the day, but it seemed like, you know, there's definitely something else going on here that's definitely working for them. It's kind of interesting. But you still get that same signature Within Temptation sound, which is really cool. I didn't notice too much about Sharon's voice that needed to be talked about, other than the fact that it just suits this style so beautifully. She's got those high soaring sort of bell-like clean sounds. You never hear any kind of aggression unless it's kind of like she's sort of squeezing out a word for the, you know, like as part of a impassioned performance sort of thing. But again, there's definitely space for that. Like that's, you know, a lot of people who are into symphonic metal, that's the wheelhouse. That's the benchmark for a great vocal. So, you know, I'm all about that. The temptation, if you'll excuse the pun, is to, you know, when musical trends tend to evolve out of what you're doing, the temptation is to try and figure out how to grab onto the ropes and sort of pull yourself along with it and figure out ways of, you know, remaining commercially viable, but also viable in the zeitgeist. You know, you don't want to be left behind playing the old stuff while everyone else is coming up with new stuff. And it's hard as a musician and a composer to hear music roll on beyond what you do and not want to try and figure out how you can integrate some of that stuff in. And a lot of times it just comes off as inauthentic, which is the big problem. Like when old dudes are trying to co-op, it to me, it sort of smacks of that whole, you know, when someone like KFC or Kentucky Fried Chicken or whatever will start taking, you know, rhetoric that they hear off TikTok and using that like, you know, whatever the kids are saying, we're going to use that as our slogan for the next foreseeable future. And it just feels really forced and it feels like it was a boardroom decision. It doesn't feel natural and an authentic progression. And that's the danger. A lot of bands, when they try to imitate, you know, what the youth culture is just organically producing, it feels a little co-opted. And sometimes it's better to stay in your wheelhouse and just keep giving your fans what they desire. And maybe you'll pick up some new ones along the way. The industry right now is nothing if not eclectic, right? You just have to look at the top 40 charts. It doesn't know what it wants to be. There's so much random stuff. No one knows what the current sound is. So they're just making random stuff and people still seem to like it. But, you know, no particular style to me is dominating the charts other than like really sort of scattered electronica pop stuff, which is just super hyper overproduced. And that's not, I don't mean that as a slight. It's just, that's what it is. It's just really hyper produced, heartless kind of ephemera that is good enough. People like it and people play it and they sing along to it. And this is my jam, you know, whatever, you know, but there's something to be said for sticking in your lane and doing what you know best. And over time, you become better at being you by remaining truthful to your journey, right? And of course, you know, like you can benefit from the improvements in technology and concepts of as far as like dropping in samples, for example, which is samples have been around forever, but it's kind of, you know, this might be their way of expressing more of a modern tilt, if that makes sense. But anyway, look, this was a great song. I'm excited. It's the kind of thing you'd hear on a soundtrack. which is exactly what I was expecting when I dove back in. The worst thing for me would have been to jump into Within Temptation hearing something that doesn't sound anything like the Silent Force. I think it would have been a little bit of tragedy if they'd have lost their direction. Now, I'm talking about them like these guys haven't done anything in the last 16 years, right? It's me who's been out of the loop. Let's be real, right? So these guys may have been consistently outputting albums every year for the last 16, 17 years that sound exactly like this. I don't know, but you've got to look at it from my perspective of someone who's checking in after a really long time and seeing what's what. Fans of Within Temptation are probably like, I don't think, this is the interesting thing. I don't think you'll find many in the Within Temptation demographic who would say something like, man, I like their old stuff before they changed or before they got soft or before they went and tried a new direction or they sort of pivoted. These guys have kept their fans happy this entire time. And I'm sure people like myself, they check out for a while, they check back in, they listen, you know, and it seems like the hookiness and everything is just as catchy as it was back then. It's just whether or not you as a listener are willing to sort of dive back into that time zone, and sort of backward symphonic metal was kind of hitting its peak. And you know, and like anything, it's cyclic. It'll come back around. There'll be a time when everybody will be like punishing Nightwish again, en masse, not just the niche metal fans who love that stuff. You know, it's like, you know, at the moment, emo is sort of making a comeback, and at the same time, weird 90s ephemeral stuff is making a comeback as well. That's the problem. We're in this time frame where there's no one is pushing forward. We need another grunge revolution. Grunge changed everything. It took what everybody knew and it turned on its head, and it became the driving force for rock for like the next 10 or 15 years. You know, I think that's what we need, is we need someone to come along who knows, they're like the trailblazer. They're like, this is what music is now, guys. Like it or not, here it is. And I don't know if that's happened in a while. So, but while we wait, we can always check back in within Temptation and get what we liked about them fresh and new. So that's really cool. I admire that, and I appreciate these guys a lot for that. If you feel like I brought you day at all, feel free to support the channel just by buying me a coffee. I'll leave a link in the description, or just hit the thanks button underneath this video, and, you know, like, share, follow, subscribe, all that sort of stuff if you haven't already. You know, my channel's very eclectic. I don't sort of sit in a particular niche anymore. I used to sort of specifically just do a lot of metal stuff, but now obviously, you know, we're going in a million different directions, and that's what I love about it. I don't want to change that for the world. So if you, like me, call yourself an eclectic music listener, you'll probably get a lot of benefit from this channel. Anyway, thank you so much, and for checking in. I encourage you to come back anytime, and stay primal. I'll catch you on the next one.